This is a silk fabric and it is about 2 yards. Depending on your size, 2 yards or 3 yards should be enough for this style. I'll be making use of a freehand method to cut the style. I won't be making use of pattern. So first we are going to fold the fabric into 4 as I'll be cutting the front and the back together. Fold your fabric into 4 and arrange it properly on the table like I've done with mine. Now I'm marking a line across the fabric at the top. This line will serve as the shoulder line. From the shoulder line, I'll go ahead and mark the chest line, but I won't be marking the normal chest line that we know. I'm marking 6 inches first because I am working with freehand and I don't want the measurement along the armhole to be too wide. So I marked 6 inches for the chest line. Now from the shoulder line, I'll go ahead and mark the full length of the dress. This is like a mini dress, but I won't be making mine too short, so I marked 38 inches for the length of the dress. So you can decide on the length you want for your dress. Go ahead and mark the full length of the dress and connect it into a straight line. The next measurement I'll be marking is the neckline of the dress. Looking at the picture on the thumbnail, the neckline has a bit of gathers or pleats. Either gathers or pleats, there's like pleats or gathers on the neckline. So here for the neckline, I'm marking 9 inches so that we can have something to pleat along the neckline. From the point where I marked the 9 inches, I'll connect slantly to the chest line. Working with a silk fabric can be kind of tricky as the fabric tends to move as you touch it, so that is why you see me going in with my chalk to at least make the markings visible. Now I went ahead to mark the bust measurement on the chest line. The bust measurements divided by 4 and I added 1 inch allowance, 1 inch for stitching. Now I'm using my curved ruler to connect my armhole slantly. The next step is to mark from the shoulder line to the waistline. I'm marking 16 inches as my waistline and I'll connect that into a straight line. Next, I'll go in with the waist measurements divided by 4 and I'll add 1 inch allowance for stitching. I'll use my curved ruler to connect from the chest line to the waistline. The next step is to mark from the shoulder line to the hip line. I'm marking 25 inches as my hip line and I'll connect that into a straight line. Next, I'll go in with the hip measurements divided by 4 and I'll add 1 inch allowance for stitching and connect from my waistline to the hip line. The last step is to connect from the hip line to the hem of the dress. You're just going to connect it slantly to the hem like you see me doing with the chalk. Just connect like so, and then at the hem of the dress, I'll go up by 1.5 inches. This is just to create a bit of curve at the hem of the dress. We don't want it straight like that. This one will give it a bit of curve. And that is all on the cutting of both the front and the back. I'll cut it out now. And while cutting, I'll add ½ inch allowance at the bottom. On the side, we already added allowance while marking, so there's no need to add any allowance on the side. At the top, you can add ½ inch at the top while cutting. We have 2 pieces of the same thing, one for the front and one for the back. So whatever process you see me doing on this one, I'll repeat the same process on the other piece. The first thing I'm going to do here is to make pleats. I'm just going to make tiny pleats so that we can have the neckline in place. To determine how wide the neckline should be, by the time you are done pleating, you can decide to measure around your neckline to determine the front part. But if you cannot measure, make sure that for a small size or a medium size, maybe from size 8 to 12, make sure that you have at least 6 inches by the time you are done pleating and you measure what you have. For a plus size, make sure it is 7.5 and above by the time you are done pleating. For this one that I have here now, I'm going to measure it and I have about 7 inches. So depending on your size, between 6 inches to about 7.5 inches. I'm going to repeat the same thing on this other piece. This is after I was done making the pleat on the second piece, and this one will serve as the back. I'm going to open the back piece a little bit at the center. I'm not going to cut it open to the end. I'm going to mark from the neckline to 7 inches. So I'm just going to slash it up until that point. If you have a bias tape that matches the color of the fabric you are using, you can use it to pipe this opening we have on the back. But if not, you are going to use the same fabric as a bias tape to pipe the opening at the back. For mine, I used the same fabric and I have done it here. The next step is to trim the armhole. The measurement I have here on the armhole is 7 inches, so I'm going to make it about 8.5 to 9 inches. I don't want it too wide and I don't want it too small. So you can measure around your armhole to determine the measurements. I'm trimming out mine here and I'll do the same thing on the second piece. So I'll still measure to make sure that I have exactly what I want. Now that I am done trimming the armhole, the next step is to join both the front and the back together. So just place the two pieces on each other, right side facing, and go ahead and join it from the armhole all the way to the end of the dress. But before joining the sides together, I'll use the same fabric to pipe around the armhole for both the front and the back. Use it to stitch the armhole. Finish it up first before you go ahead and join the sides together. That is what I'm going to do here. I'll make use of this small piece of fabric to stitch around the armhole before joining the sides together. This is after I was done joining the sides together. You can see, please press after joining the sides together. I have also hemmed the bottom of the dress. The last thing is to work on the collar for the upper part of this dress. I have this piece of fabric. I folded it into two. The wideness of this fabric is 23.5 and it is in a fold, while the length is 4 inches. What I'm going to do is simple. I'll first get the midpoint of this piece of fabric, get the midpoint and notch it. I'll also get the center front of the dress on the neckline. The center front of the neckline, I'll notch that point also. After notching that point, I'll match the notched point on this piece of fabric to the notched point of the center front of the dress. I'll match the 2 points together and I'll take it to the sewing machine and I'll stitch from one end of the front part to the other end. You can pin it first like I'm doing here. After pinning, you're going to stitch it with 1/2 inch. I'm done stitching the front part. From the part where the stitch stop, I am marking 2.5 inches here, but I'll advise that you don't mark 2.5 because I later increased it to 4 inches. So please mark 4 inches at this point. From the part where the stitch stopped at the front, mark 4 inches on both sides. Once you are done marking the 4 inches, notch the points on both sides. You are going to pin the neckline of the back piece to the point where you notched. So you can just watch what I'm doing here. The part where I notched is where I'm pinning the neckline of the back on. So you are going to pin it to the end point where the back neckline stops. Once you are done with one side, you are going to repeat the same process on the other side. So from the point where you notched is where you are going to start pinning the back neckline all the way to the end. I'll take it to the sewing machine and stitch that. This is after I was done stitching the back part, and this is what we have. The next thing is just to close the seam. We're going to use the fabric to cover the seam. So you're going to fold in 1/2 inch at the tip and then you're going to fold it over the seam allowance just to cover your stitch. I think this part is self-explanatory. You can just watch what I'm doing and pin it down first before you take it to the sewing machine. Fold in 1/2 inch at the tip first and then you're going to fold it over the seam. At the tip of the collar, the excess, you're going to close it first before folding it over. After stitching, this is what your dress should look like. Please press it properly. You're going to press it and make sure that everything stays nice and flat. And you're just going to tie this one at the back when you wear the dress. You can make your fabric for the collar longer if you want your rope longer than this when you tie it at the back. Thank you guys for watching. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, leave a comment, share this video with your friends and subscribe to my channel. Please turn on your notification bell so you'll get notified anytime I upload a new video. Thank you guys for watching and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.